Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Finian's Rainbow, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, Scarface by Brian De Palma, we have Layer Cake, directed by Matthew Vaughn, we have newly released The Zone of Interest by Jonathan Glazer, and finally, Argylle, again directed by Matthew Vaughn. So it is going to be a great show, folks. Stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay on this side of the table. How was your week of movies, Vin?
A week was all over the map, honestly. I think early on this was maybe going to be a Vaughn special plus the Fred Astaire spot, but...
I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't as well. I'll tell you what, though. Layer Cake was a surprising watch. I would say refreshing. After coming after Argylle. I did watch it after Argylle as well.
Okay.
I don't know about you.
So I didn't know. No, I watched Argylle last.
Okay.
I've always really liked Layer Cake.
Yep.
I've probably seen it, this might have been my fifth time watching it. And it's almost like the most I've enjoyed it.
Really?
Yeah. I really, really like Layer Cake. It's funny to see where Matthew Vaughn goes in his career, kind of.
It really was interesting as well, seeing the little pieces of his style and what that style gets blown out to. It was really interesting seeing it toned back, or maybe him even wrestling a little bit with I don't know, maybe getting what he really wanted to do but he had to maybe make some sacrifices for it.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of pieces. I didn't connect too many dots.
Interesting. When's the last time you maybe watched like a Kingsman or something in between?
Not too unrecently.
Oh, really?
Is that a word?
I don't know. I actually don't know what you mean by not too unrecently.
I think I might have made that up. Kind of recently. Okay. It hasn't been that long since I've watched Kingsman or any of those whatevers. I've got some thoughts. But anyway, and then, of course, we've got our Fred movie, directed by none other but the guy that directed
The Godfather. 4 years prior to The Godfather. And boy, is that it was a terrible movie, I'll tell you that much.
All right. Any other opening notes?
I hope everyone watched Tony Montana be...
Yeah, it's just a big name. Scarface is a big name.
This is a big week.
We're in no joke here.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's jump back to 1968. You already kind of gave up
Gave them the goat a little bit on this one.
1968, Finian's Rainbow. So this is definitely, when you're close to the 70s, this is as old as Astaire. I mean, Fred Astaire was born in the 1800s,
Yeah.
So,
right.
So we're getting up there in his dancing age and his just professional career.
Yep.
Again, a huge director of the guy who directed The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola.
Right.
How much did you not like Finian's Rainbow?
Oof. Oh, man. I did not like it at all.
Okay.
I mean, there are maybe some aspects that I'll hone into, but none of those really make a compelling watch or compelling recommendation to someone to go out of their way and actually watch this, old 68 movie. We're kicking off Fred Astaire February, folks, with a little bit of a stinker, and I did kind of know what I was in for, but then again, I really didn't know how bad it was going to be. The biggest surprise here is, of course, Francis Ford Coppola directing this, coming out 4 short years before 1972's must-watch, The Godfather. Something that was also very much top of mind with watching Scarface this week and thinking about gangster movies and even thinking back to our blaxploitation special. Unfortunately, Finian's Rainbow is not a gangster movie. It really would be great if it was a gangster movie. But
It's not even close.
Well, of course, we're here for My Main Man Astaire. It's really about kind of killing two birds with one stone on this one, because I've always been curious about this film. I've always understood it to be kind of on the lower end of Fred's spectrum.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We're getting through a decent amount of Fred as well.
Yeah.
We're covering a lot of Fred.
I would say in the course of the looming special that we will be doing this month, and just in the fact that I've watched so much of his films over the course of the podcast now, I think we're pretty much dry. The well is dry.
That's good. I mean, we're covering, we got a good Fred Astaire then.
Yeah, exactly.
On the site.
Even to the point that the ones I really try to dig deep for and potentially like flesh out for scheduling of this month, they're just hard to find. Like, we're running into things that when people say like physical media is important and we're losing like 70% of films made before 1950, I'm encountering that with Fred Astaire movies. Some of the lesser known ones. So, Finian's Rainbow is not only very late into Astaire's career, like Tom said, coming 2 years before his official retiring from dancing, but it's also a G-rated family musical in a decade where Disney only had Mary Poppins as its live-action hit, or rather its only live-action hit. That aspect is really eye-opening with this film because tonally it's so unrefined, so proto, you know what I mean? This really felt like, oh, wow, they just didn't know the rule book yet on making, like, family films. And it feels confusing on who exactly this was made for, because G-rated is not how I would describe this movie.
Oh, it's... Really?
It's G-rated in the sense that it's overall very innocent, but the concepts I don't think are for, like, every child, you know what I mean?
More adult, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because Fred, anything usually Fred is attached to is just an easy, good time watch, kind of.
Exactly.
Right,
musical comedies and
Yeah.
whatnot. In this, Fred Astaire is Finian McLonergan, an Irish immigrant that comes to America, I kid you not, Tom, to bury his pot of gold. No less in a community near Fort Knox, only to be followed by a real leprechaun he stole it from.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that seems really nice and fun.
Weird.
Family.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah. Well, you might think that's enough for a premise for a family musical. Mind-bogglingly, the people of this community are the real focus of the story. This includes a tasteless tobacco cash crop subplot, where this hippie community is trying to develop menthol cigarettes. Don Franks is the love interest here. He's a little rapey as well. It was really not good. And the whole time I was kind of calling Discount Bin Sean Bean. If you want to look up
What?
Yeah,
for the guy that was a little rapey?
Yeah, he looks like Sean Bean. He looks like 1960s Sean Bean.
Is the character's name Og?
No,
or
no.
Woody Mahoney?
No. No, yeah, it is Woody. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I see a little Sean Bean.
Yeah.
I do.
Worst of all is the villain is honestly a super racist senator that is after the land rights and who appears in blackface for half of the movie. I mean, this is wow. Did this just like it was barely a Fred movie. It was barely a good musical, and then it has just these tonally just garbage.
Yeah, for 68 as well. Yeah.
And they, again, I guess, these the plot is a menthol cigarette cash crop, and it's like, what? Like, what?
And Fred Astaire just has a pot of gold he's trying to bury?
Right, and he comes to this hippie community.
Right.
And he's just trying to bury it near Fort Knox, because that's how he heard he could get away from the leprechaun.
Wow.
That's so, it's not even second fiddle. It's like sixth fiddle to this film, you know?
Wait, so there's actually, did we get to see a bad leprechaun in this? Or it's a fictional, like, it's just...
You do get to see. Amidst all of these real aspects, like the economy of tobacco and, and senators looking after land acquisition. You do actually get a magical leprechaun that's like super flamboyant and like singing and whatnot. So it's real bad. It's real bad. That's what I said. I mean, I don't think that anything could really save this.
This is bonkers.
Yeah. So not even a slightly good movie, folks, but there are some aspects that I thought held up. I would say the musical sequences are very ambitious with a lot of dynamic camera work. I bring this up because I was kind of expecting just a dog on Coppola a little bit for this. And like, what are you doing, directing this musical? Film-wise, and the filmmaking in Coppola, I can't say I'm well-versed enough with his directing that I could spot any trends, but it really was a well-shot film. Also, I don't comment on this too much, but I felt that the upscaling and the digital copy of this film was very good looking.
Oh, it sharpened it up a little bit?
Exactly, especially even in comparison to a lot of the older films that we've watched on the podcast. I feel like there's always a problem with audio, streaming services, the quality of the digital upgrade to it.
Right, yeah.
This, I thought, was excellent, so much so that I was saying to myself, as far as like the look of musicals, this looked better than Wonka, as far as colors and vibrancy. And
really?
whatnot. Yeah, it looked better than a new movie. So
really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's just wow. Okay.
But I would say that's about it for praise. Everything else, though, is a hard pass. I think the runtime is ultimately the source of the problems here, folks, because it leaves so much space for these dated aspects to just fester and rot, like just sour milk.
2 hours and 21 minutes.
Yeah,
for what's supposed to be a kids musical.
Right, with where the kids aspect, the kids story of this fun leprechaun is again like so far, so in the back burner. It's not even funny. Again, this community making experimental menthol tobacco. I mean, is it just like get these kids smoking? Is 68? We don't have the reports yet. I don't know. I just found it just so incredibly tasteless. It's just ridiculous, and like this completely shoots itself in the foot as well, because it just could have been a fun, cute little story about a leprechaun losing his powers as his gold is stolen. But I feel like they just try to make something that's slightly for adults too, and just completely failed. I mean, it's just really, really bad. Mainly that racist senator as well, who is supposed to be bad. He's made to be the villain. It just doesn't sit right with me. There are some mean-spirited jokes that just they're not.
The blackface doesn't sit right in the year 2024.
Yeah, you don't say. The jokes that are made at the expense of this blackface and the racial jokes, they're not clear enough that they're jokes in the first place, but also they're not clear enough that they're being made by like the villains, if you will, the antagonists of the film.
Right, there's not enough sarcasm coming through.
Exactly,
yeah.
and again,
self-awareness.
It really just like wow. On top of the shock of seeing the blackface, it was like, oh, they're kind of doubling down a little bit with this. So
again, it's 68. Like did this movie, besides all the color, did this movie feel like a 40s movie?
No, it felt very 60s
Okay.
in that it was about this kind of like hippie commune.
Oh, yeah.
I think Finian's Rainbow was a Broadway run and a book, and I think that was even in early 60s, if I'm correct. But yeah, overall, folks, amidst all of this garbage, I think Fred, he comes out all right. He's all right. He's got his skin on. He's just not in the scenes that I have a problem with. So I was like, all right, he's not even in this movie. I'm all right with this. The few dance numbers here are very gentle. No heavy tap dancing here. I'd call this era his saucy jazzy phase, where he's almost like old man popping and locking. He just kind of like he like strikes a pose and then he slowly strikes another pose, and that's basically his dance.
Yeah, I think he's around 69 now, 70 years old.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy that he's still doing these things.
He's doing anything.
Yeah.
Actually, that Oscar performance that we shouted out last July during Western Month, I think it was for either Man Who Shot Liberty Valance or...
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that being his last performance. That's a perfect example of this like saucy, jazzy dancing that he does in his...
Wait, Fred Astaire?
Yeah. I forget what Oscar it was tied to, but that same Oscar year, Fred comes out on stage and he does his last dance performance
I got you.
on film.
Yes.
So.
No, that was, I believe we were talking about, was it Urban Cowboy?
Midnight Cowboy.
Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah.
I think it was for that.
Okay.
Yeah, which wasn't Western month, but
Sure.
it's cowboy. So
It stands out, and I now think of it as in July.
yeah, definitely not Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, just because that was 62. I
Okay,
think.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But if you're looking for the example of this kind of saucy, jazzy dancing, that's a perfect example of it. But when it comes to his comedy chops, he really doesn't miss a beat here. I feel his musical comedy background makes him flexible to fit in most scenes, despite his kind of older style. The only trouble is, once again, like I've said now multiple times in this, he's arguably 4th, 6th, 18th fiddle in a film that is just largely hot garbage. We're going to go ahead and give Finian's Rainbow 1968 a 25.
Ooh, 25.
It's real bad.
Yeah, it's a bad one. It's a bad one
Real
for
bad.
him.
Yeah.
25%. Not very good. Not very good.
Arguably could be lower. I would say maybe the songs kind of hold up a little bit. Like I said, didn't have a problem with the musical aspects. It was just all this like lip service around a plot that just didn't need to be there.
It's a bonkers plot.
Yeah,
and at 2 hours and 21 minutes, it's 25 is good because that says that we should all stay away from it.
Yes. It's a real steer clear score. So
okay, so we're taking a big jump in genre.
in tone.
So we're going straight. This is our third De Palma film that we're doing. This is 1983. And it's a big one.
You sound exhausted.
This is well, I'm just preparing myself. That's all it is. I'm preparing myself. This is 1983's Scarface, Finn. So you knew earlier in the week I watched 3 movies this week. So I did watch Scarface and Layer Cake and Argylle. But Brian De Palma. We said it last episode. I think I made a comment where his first two, his 80 film and his 81 and 82 film, Blowout and Dressed to Kill, very contained within their cities.
Sure.
You just had your main kind of set cast of not too many, just half a dozen, not even. Mm-hmm. And a year later, he's got Oliver Stone writing.
Yeah.
And he's making a basically almost 3-hour crazy
right.
mobster film.
Super ambitious.
That goes places. Big story.
Yep.
A lot of stuff like just the upscaling in production is what surprises me the most about just his trajectory here.
Yeah.
But Scarface, how did you like it?
Well, this was a pleasure to rewatch because, of course, growing up, I was super into gangster films. I loved any kind of gangster film, and revisiting this, Scarface is just such an anomaly even within its kind of gangster landscape because of the specific things that De Palma is trying to kind of subvert. Even in comparison to, the blaxploitation films that we talked about on the special, The Godfather, Part 1 and 2, all of this is pre-Goodfellas, and I feel like we talk a lot about on the wave, the tidal wave that Goodfellas created in reshaping how a crime movie is done. This is enjoyable because you see that it's a little bit rougher around the edges, but De Palma really is trying to shake things up. And let me start by saying, folks, this De Palma study, it hasn't been super great. No. Tom and I were joking about it, and these studies are about exploring directors I haven't seen, and that comes with some risk and quality. So, while there isn't a split screen in this one, I do think slightly, not a huge amount of appreciation, but I do think rewatching, or rather watching these awful De Palma movies have enriched my rewatch in this a tiny bit. It helped me see Tony Montana as more of a pulp villain, side by side with the killer characters we've seen so far in these films. But those other movies did not have Al Pacino, which I love dearly in this. Scarface is a gangster movie classic that eclipses the original 1932 classic by the same name that this is roughly based off of. Tony Montana is an immigrant that comes to Florida amidst the Cuban crime wave of the 1980s, the story being singularly focused on his rise to power and his famous bullishness that knocks him up the crime ladder again and again. It's that mob movie formula to a T, that rise and fall story that almost requires being told in a meaty 3 hours. If there's anything connective tissue to all these mob movies, is that they're all super long.
They are. They tell a story, that's for sure.
Exactly. I got to say, folks, I want to give a shout out to Tom though, because Tom has been killing it with his watch list the past couple of weeks. Tom, you want to talk about your week after watching Scarface?
Well, no, I just went for it. I watched Scarface and then immediately went ahead and started the original one from 32, especially when I found out that Howard Hawks does it. And actually, at the end of Scarface, De Palma says this film was dedicated to Howard Hawks, which is awesome.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to watch this.
Yeah.
And so I watched most of it.
No, you did finish.
There's pros and cons to it.
Okay.
And then I just went on a Hawks tear. So then I watched Rio Bravo, El Dorado. Oh no, what was the other one? Rio Lobo, which is called the Rio Bravo trilogy.
Oh, really? Okay,
they're almost the same film, essentially.
Very interesting.
Kind of.
Awesome.
Rio Lobo goes other places, but yeah.
I think that's great.
Oh,
I love that so much. I wish that was my week.
Yeah, and I watched Red River.
Oh, Red River, classic. Great. Honestly, I thought this was great that you did this because I did not have the bandwidth to go to the original Scarface.
Yeah.
And something I've always asked myself around this film is there any connective tissue? I think prior to the podcast, I just kind of denied that there was connective tissue because the stories are so different, and because this Scarface is so specifically about the Cuban angle. What is the
so there's a lot of tone and maybe things that happen with our main character.
Okay,
because they're both following a book. So the book came out, and I want to say in like 28.
Yeah, yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then the original film was 32, and then this in 83. So Montana, I honestly even forget the main guy's name is Tony.
Isn't he supposed to be Al Capone?
Yes. So essentially he's Al Capone.
Yep.
But Montana's the last name still, I believe.
Oh, really?
But essentially what Hawks does is he bases it about a guy who goes from small time in the mob, small time kind of gangster, the way up to the top.
Yep.
And he uses real life violence, gangster violence that happened in real life in the movie. Apparently, all the killings in the film is what actually happened in real life.
Interesting.
It has a lot to do with the making of the Tommy gun as well. And what was the huge? I always forget the name of the massacre. I think it's called something.
The Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yes. Okay. So that's in there. That's a big part of the scene, and it's about this main guy, Montana, rising through the ranks. Now, Hawks even has. I was telling you during the week that in the beginning of the film he has white text up.
Yep.
And the whole idea is Hawks is putting is highlighting this and all the crime that's going on and the death in the community. And it's an outcry for the government to do something about it. But then Hawks, being very Hawks,
right?
Very, I don't know. It's you just get the sense of the guy
bullish. Yeah, I guess you could say
bullish and. Yeah, I don't even know what there weren't really conservatives back then, but very much not only saying that for the government to do something, but then he reminds everyone saying that you, the people, are the government. What are you going to do about it?
Wow, super call to action.
And then there's actually my favorite scene of the film actually had nothing to do with the main character and had I think it was a newspaper guy. The townspeople were pissed that the newspapers were publishing this and making it more of a thing, and he just goes on this tear. Which really he takes the place of Howard Hawks in this. What are you going to do about it? This is a people's problem, and he's a newspaper salesman, so he tries to flip it around basically on the people who are upset at him. So similar, but anyway, it's worth a watch for film history and just kind of how maybe what De Palma grabs from this.
Sure.
Because there are things. It's not just a complete, well, we're just going to redo this. And I can see how De Palma did a little bit of a love letter to the original one. For sure, there's elements in there. So I enjoyed it. Is it anything to do with Cuban culture? Anything to do with Florida and Miami? No. So New York.
But the broad strokes of this is a criminal that pushes his way up the crime ladder. That's the structure. That's the skeleton. Still.
Yes, and an over-the-top guy who does not care. Because Tony Montana is an asshole, and it's beyond... eye for an eye. It's way past that. And this guy is very over the top. Apparently at the time, Italians kind of found it offensive a little bit with how over the top the main actor was trying to be Italian. I kind of agree. And then I look at Tony Soprano. I look at Tony Montana, played by Al Pacino, and it's just like, well,
maybe it's just
kind
a book that
kind of goes hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the same deal with like over the top guys being very bombastic, very just thick-headed to the max. So good to see. It was fun to pair them together.
I like hearing what you said, that it was based off of semi-real events. De Palma making this film in '83. This is very topical to him, but also he incorporates real crime events. Perfect example is the chainsaw scene. That there were reports in Miami that, or in Florida.
Oh,
that,
I don't know if I knew this.
There was a famous a drug deal gone wrong, and then a guy running in the streets with a chainsaw.
Okay.
So maybe he's De Palma is taking that inspiration, and trying to update it with
sounds
similar
like it.
structure.
Yeah.
But
So it was a cool step in history.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think that's great. That takes some balls. We floated around a pre-code film special where we would watch these old movies. Scarface is definitely one of those pre-code ones.
Yeah.
How was the violence in the old one?
For 32, really good.
Okay.
It gets to a point where it's like, well, it's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to really soft-handed with it. You know what I mean?
But those are the films that started the ratings boards and whatnot.
Yeah, and
so I was hoping there's going to be a little brutal.
There were critics at the time that refused to see it, refused to write about it because they felt the film was too violent.
Wow.
Which is so funny. So Howard Hawks was, and he was younger when he made that as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny to think so far back in these huge directors how they were pushing the envelope, because to us it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's, you really watch it and it has nothing to do with Tarantino is eons away from it.
Yeah.
But because Hawks was clearly pushing the envelope at the time, it felt ahead of its time as a film. So
Interesting.
yeah.
I love that the one real connective tissue is that they're both assholes. The Tony Montana character in the original.
A big time.
And I think that's where we can kind of bridge back to the Scarface we all know and maybe don't love. I think over the years the reception of this film has fluctuated wildly. I can safely say that if you're not into this Tony Montana character, if you're not into Al Pacino, this is not going to work for you. It is so singularly focused on that, and for 3 hours, again. Now, I can totally understand the critiques of Al Pacino's acting. It's very easy to pigeonhole his accent work and even the body language of the character. But the argument I'll make, and the sword I'll fall on for my boy Pacino, is that, Tony is an idiot intentionally. This feels like a character with zero book smarts, but all of the street smarts and plenty of instinct.
Yeah.
This is shown in nearly every character interaction as well. I think it's reinforced by the supporting roles in this film. Tony seizes more power. He acquires more powerful friends that are always just stunned how stupid he is. Multiple lines are just like, man, you're something else, Tony. Not even knowing what to say, and especially not wanting to piss him off. This is not your calculated mobster. Tony is a wild tiger, aligned with his purchases. He's a pusher. And the story is about how that recklessness gets him everything until he pushes it all away. Pacino's performance is no doubt entertaining in just kind of like, wow, he's just going crazy in this. But I personally see quality in the dead stares he gives, the quiet fury of Tony Montana. He's not saying slick lines.
Yeah.
It's all in his actions. And I feel like where I stand by this performance for Al Pacino is that he sells a scary criminal character in that he lacks awareness, he lacks perspective to act logically.
Yeah.
He's just this wild tiger, he's just this pusher, basically.
So I know people... I'm kind of with you on this.
Okay.
I kind of like his performance.
Yeah.
I think it's enjoyable to watch for, almost 3 hours. Mm-hmm. Exactly what you're saying. He exudes a certain energy, and it's through his acting where you get to feel this guy.
Yeah.
It's in real life, if you're at a bar or something like that, if you just get close, you don't even have to have an interaction where you just feel like someone might be a little bit psychopathic.
Yeah, a little dangerous.
Or it gets nasty when they drink, and you can just kind of feel it. There's an aura in the room.
Yep.
He exudes that great on screen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, accent aside, the accent's not terrible.
Right.
It's interesting.
I love it, but that's where I just understand both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and I kind of like it as well.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if we had a more muted version of him, automatically less entertaining film.
Right. And we would understand the character less.
Yeah.
As just, and idiot, you know? I also think it's there's in the legacy of this film, among all mob gangster films, there is a love affair with Tony Montana that I feel like blurs the true intention of this, in that he's not meant to be a likable character. We're watching the villain among villains, basically. So
he's almost never likable in any scene.
In any scene. So I feel, this movie that has been so revered and is among like the cool guy film mob movie type of thought process.
Yes.
I feel like it really does lose the point of what De Palma is trying to get across with this character, and possibly even the original, that it's a semi-moral example that, this is not someone to look up to. This is an anti-hero story.
Yes, but he does boil down to every guy's dumb side of his brain a little bit. You know what I mean? So there's a relatable, like, like the go, say hello to my little friend. Hell yeah. Exactly. It does boil down to something that's all in us.
Yeah. Right. But I think on these kind of deeper notes of Scarface, I think a great running theme is eyes, showing the true desires of characters and often revealing how simple these characters are. Of course, this is embodied in the famous line, I'm going to try it, "The eyes, Chico, they never lie."
I liked it. No, it was good. Yeah. Sorry, you went.
I was looking for immediate gratification. Yeah. Tony is the simplest of all, and with him not having the smarts to untangle the schemes of his counterparts, it becomes his only gauge around for people around him. This obsession definitely hits on the storyline with his sister, the obsession, I feel like, with cameras towards the end, and the iconic, I always, the thing is, I always remember his monitors as more than just,
just a couple cameras.
Six monitors. I always remember it as like a wall of monitors, and it's just like 6 monitors. But you can see that he's, in the coke-filled rage, the delusions compounding with this character, eyes become this only thing. Perspective becomes this only truth for him, where everyone is scheming around him and trying to control him in a lot of ways. I think it's always in combination with how the reception of Tony Montana is skewed a lot. On top of that as well, I like this theme of eyes that runs through it. That felt De Palma once again, where he kind of takes, I don't know, one element of a criminal character and he blows it out.
He kind of enhances it a little bit.
Exactly.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. I also have to take a second just to shout out a few aspects that I love. The soundtrack here is super nostalgic for me. I had this on CD growing up. I also played the shit out of the the Scarface video game, which was just a soulless Grand Theft Auto rip-off. Like a soulless Grand Theft Auto.
What console was it on?
PS2.
Okay,
nice. I think with the music here, I love the music stings, as cheesy as Casio keyboard as they may be.
Yes, 80s as it feels.
Yeah. I think this coming out in 83 really, sets the tone. This is before the big iconic hits of the decade have come through, your Top Guns and whatnot. And I feel like there's something there that I want to give credit to kind of the trend-setting aspect of that.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Scene-wise, this has one of my favorite chainsaw scenes in all of film. It's not the most, I always thought it was very intense, but it's not the most actually visually gory or intense. I feel like for me, it hits as such a powerful scene when you see the look on Pacino's eyes, this almost drunkenness of what he's seeing. And it's, I think, a great example of you don't need to show the atrocity or the horror itself. It can be shown through the reactions of characters. Yeah. And certainly that will be a concept we return to for the Zone of Interest. So I was very much appreciating restraint, but also letting your actors have a platform to sell what's really going on there. It's something about that chainsaw scene as well. It just really sells the fear of a bad drug deal. The crime is not super stylish at that point.
Right.
And the scare comes from how messy the whole scene feels. I mean, it just feels chaotic. No one's really in control of it.
I know. And it's funny because I have never actually sat down and watched this all the way through just once. Mm-hmm. And so it was good to do that. And I was maybe expecting more because you always hear about it.
Yep.
I almost feel like the film was hindered for me because we all know so much about the film or
Sure.
memes of the film, lines of the film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, I know it already without really knowing it.
Yep.
So stepping into that scene, I was expecting just more gore and more
Right,
everything. But
right.
you're right where it also sold the character more where Tony does not care about anyone else. He
Right.
really cares for number one as
Yep.
well. I thought that was a very good scene to help that out of us understanding who this guy is.
Yeah, he says it's his brother. It's not his brother. You know,
Right, yeah.
it's all just to.
He also
get
lets
the
it
deal
like
across.
he also just does. He doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
It just happens, kind of.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't say no. You know, don't do that. Yeah, but it's in that like almost the drunkenness. I always when he's
Yeah.
you know, seeing what's going on. We don't see what's going on. I just feel like, man, that's just such a great scene, and just again, just a little bit of a love affair with this one. I love the scenes with his mother because it breaks what is already a trend, a trope, a meme of these gangster films that the mother's just like, oh, you making money? Like, yeah. You know, his mother denies him. And talk about
constantly.
a great performance from, you know, I don't know who this actress is, you know.
Oh, I know.
Just really, like, a great scene of her denying him. It's just, I love it to death. Folks, I've seen this movie so many times that I found it hard for me to gauge what a first-time experience for that reason, what that would be, especially when it comes to critiques and expectations. I already tackled a big one with Pacino's performance and the you know, if you don't dig him, you're not gonna dig this film. But if I'm being realistic, a very understandable one, a very understandable jab at the film could be this long ass runtime. It's a lot, and it really consumed my thoughts around this film. You know, walking into this with a very positive rating, I gave it back pre-podcast, but these pre-podcast scores have become a bit of a puzzle for myself. Since I've come so far in watching just a huge catalog of films, I look at old scores now. I'm like, I got to find the love again. I got to find what sparked in me because Scarface I've easily seen 7 times. This now probably being the 8th time I've seen it. You know, I needed to kind of almost see it with new eyes, both for the good and the bad.
Right.
And I'm happy to say that even though my critical eyes can spot the problems with this, I still can be surprised how strong the rewatch holds up for everything I fell in love with the first time. I hope in the blanket recommendation for folks at home to watch this, I hope that at least those valid critiques didn't really sink the whole experience for the rewatch at home. With that said, we are going to give Scarface 1983 already established the well-deserved 81.
Excellent score, 81%. And I really liked it. Again, I was almost thought that the film was hurt a little bit watching it because I've already, not only have I have seen bits and pieces of it before, but because it's so memeable.
Absolutely.
You know, because it just has such a culture. The people who like it has such a culture with it and everything.
The electric scenes are also already spoiled for you.
Of course.
You know what I mean? These are meant to be the big payoff for the film, but we all know them because of pop culture.
But, I mean, I have to say, still sitting down and watching it all the way through, I think the runtime is granted or warranted.
Okay.
I look at it almost as if you're playing a video game and you're Tony Montana, it's just he's constantly leveling up, or he has a new boss, a new challenge.
That's why it was a pretty good game.
A new challenge on his way up. So there's very little that I would actually want to go back and cut because I want to see the rise. I you know, there's actually he makes his first couple jumps up, and I almost want that to be fleshed out a little bit more. Because it's important to see how, you know, when you're at the end and we're at this scene that everyone is aware of, you know, this 15-minute scene. I want it to be earned. You know what I mean? I don't want it to seem like I want it to feel as real as possible. We get to see this guy's struggle of how he got there. You know what I mean? So the runtime I think is great. I don't know if I would really. I mean, would I change things? Sure, but would I just cut things out or leave that out? No, because I think the rise. I mean, it is the film. The rise is the film of Tony Montana.
And that's that gangster movie. It's the rise and fall structure of it that you need time for it to feel real.
Yeah, and I almost feel I'm impressed with De Palma for doing this in 83.
Yeah.
Because you're right. What Goodfellas did for movies in general, and especially mob movies, it's hard to say I'm not as impressed with Goodfellas because I love that film.
Sure.
But it's like, yeah, that template is here. We do see some of that already.
Yeah.
So it's a great film. Not going to give it a 2 shoes, but I really enjoyed it. Even think back to the old one then, by the way, too. I totally forgot that there was a whole subplot of...
Don't tell me menthol cash
no.
crop.
But of the main character, Tony, because the main character is Tony. I don't know if he's Montana or not. The same thing with his sister. Sister starts getting involved with his friends and the ping, and he's just like, even when he pulls her out, he takes a second to like shut up. He screams "shut up" at her. Same thing with Al Pacino in the bathroom stall.
Yes.
That and I totally forgot. He went for what was his higher up, then becomes his equal, then he surpasses. He goes for his woman.
Wow. And that's of course Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I don't know the actress in the original, but I forgot. A lot of similarities.
Interesting. So yeah, that's always something that I've questioned. I said, maybe inspired, but not like they even credit the original book with it. But I guess in a lot of ways it really is that formula. Maybe that also a lot can be said about just all mob movie form. The gangster movie is set all the way back in 32.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. So that was very cool to go see. But still, the big thing is 81% for Scarface. I love that we've got it on the podcast. I love that we have it on the podcast
Absolutely. Now. Only thing left for the De Palma study is Body Double, and honestly, the reason why I'm covering it is because they say it's his most iconic. So, I said, not
what do you mean most iconic? How is Scarface not his most iconic?
Isn't that crazy?
Who says this?
People.
Yeah.
I'll get sources. No, but when it comes down to it, I have high hopes for Body Double because I can only imagine coming off of the success of Scarface at the time. That he would
he could probably be like, all right, I can get a stinker in there. Everyone's going to let it go.
One for you,
I
one
think
for
you
me.
should be careful.
Yeah.
Look what Dress to Kill did to the both of us.
Right.
And then blow out the next week. And also, not that, so this is our last of the De Palma study. Not that we covered all De Palma.
Yeah.
But this is the year of where he does 81, 82, 83, 84, which is just insane. Like a crazy movie run.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a complete psycho. And I think we could safely say maybe quality suffers because of the cadence of him making films.
Yes, yes, definitely.
So.
And props, and I said in the beginning, Scarface also written by Oliver Stone.
Yes.
And just Oliver Stone, I believe.
Yep.
Or adapted by him,
Sure.
So, you know what I mean? It's just he's working with it's crazy. Those first 2 years and then to Scarface.
Right.
And with what he's got going on.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to take a jump to 2004. This is an English-made film directed by English director Matthew Vaughn. This was this his debut?
I think so.
Okay.
He might have done small stuff, but debut
As far as feature film.
Yep.
It was an under $10 million budget. It is called Layer Cake. Again, it's 04. This has Daniel Craig in it. I said last week, if you want to know how Daniel Craig ended up getting the job or why they called him in the first place, it was him in the top 3. It was him, Orlando Bloom, and I forget the third guy. Watch Layer Cake. That's how he got into that room.
Absolutely.
With the Broccoli's and such.
It really hits, too, as far as both a fun Hollywood production story, but also when you watch this film, he has those scenes where he kind of acts like James Bond as a joke, and then it's like, oh, wow, he's got the magic.
I know, his character hates guns.
Yeah,
and then he gets the first time he touches a gun, it's like, oh, he's doing James Bond. And he looks cool as hell.
Absolutely.
Let's get into Layer Cake a little bit, Vin, and also, how'd you like it?
Well, this was a rewatch. This was Rated Preak podcast, and I would say I fully stand by it. Much like Scarface, this was a solid movie. For Layer Cake, long before Matthew Vaughn's mainstream success making action films, the feel of his movies was much closer to his other peers like Guy Ritchie, Danny Boyle, mainly, especially in the early 2000s. A seedy UK underground, slick-talking characters, and, of course, a stylish needle-drop soundtrack all wrapped up in the rule of cool. That's kind of really defines the early careers of all three of these directors. All of this might sound par for the course in 2005, but I would say watching this honestly blew my mind a little bit comparing it to anything else Matthew Vaughn has done. It's really something else. Like I commented on the beginning, Tom, I would say rewatching this was refreshing, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I did watch this after Argylle, so there's that, refreshing aspect. But, side by side, this makes Argylle look like a child's coloring book rather than a film, especially with the tacky twists out of everywhere, where this is actually very obsessed with its twists, but does so in just so much more of an earned way, a digestible way. Would you agree?
Yeah. One big thing with this is it doesn't hold your hand. To the point where the first couple times I watched this, I wasn't picking up on everything.
Sure.
Definitely. My first watch through, I still remember just being how confused I was at what's going on here.
Right, especially the accents and, kind of understanding it.
Yeah, the characters that weave in and out.
Yep.
And, well, that's why it's called Layer Cake. It's about the layers of the film and all the entangled kind of underworld of crime.
Yep.
But I love how much it doesn't hold your hand, where Matthew Vaughn has become directing just idiotic, stupid films that absolutely holds your hand, puts you on training wheels, push you out the door. To the point where, honestly, Argylle, we're obviously going to talk about it, but it's like, it's as far as a film goes, or if I made a film, the people I want to watch it, of course, the thing is everybody, but the people I want to watch it.
Yeah.
Matthew Vaughn went from somewhere where, I want adults to see my films and to be challenged a little bit and to just enjoy the story, to today, we're all just the characters, the people in WALL-E, and we float around in our chairs, and we have our big gulps, and we're just idiots.
And we're just idiots, and we watch Argylle. That's amazing. I love that.
To me, it's not the same director.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially Argylle apparently was $200 million, and this was something like $6.5 million, $7.5 million, something. This is going in my top 5. Actually, no, I think this goes in top 3 under $20 million film.
Oh, okay.
I just
be curious what else is in
I started
there.
trying to curtail the list, basically.
Yeah.
Once, and maybe past 1990, 1995.
Sure.
But I think number 1 is Whiplash, and number 2 is Layer Cake.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot, Tom.
Because what they're able to do with the film, where they go, the amount of characters on screen, and the interlaced storyline and characters, it's just impressive, man. And the writing's great.
Absolutely.
And where this guy goes, I am not as hot as Kingsman with you.
Sure. I can understand that.
You kind of like the first one, and then the third one you also kind of liked, the Kingsman.
Just because it was a refresh of the setting a little bit, like the World War I spin, but... yeah, I'm with you. I think the Kingsman, definitely a cult following on it action-wise, can kind of just blend into the loud obnoxiousness of his later movies.
And just not impressed by it. It seems the more money you give this guy, the worse his products get.
Sure.
He relies on stuff that isn't real and the CGI-heavy stuff, where when you give him a tight budget like this, you're relying on character development, writing a decent script.
Yep.
And just directing your characters on screen.
Absolutely.
And
also, anomaly because the writer, I think it's J.J. Connolly or something like that.
Okay.
It's like a once and done. It's the only thing he's written.
It's wild. I'm sure we could do a deep dive and they know each other or something like that.
Sure.
So impressed with this film to the point where, like I said, it felt like 2 different directors.
Absolutely.
I look at him now. I put him in the basket of Ryan Johnson. Right?
I think
is it Ryan Johnson, the creep that did the
creep.
The bad Star Wars?
And then Knives Out,
Yes. I definitely I put him in that.
I think that's a phenomenal observation, especially with how ballooning budgets kind of ruin the magic of the earlier works of those directors.
I was thinking about this today. I think Layer Cake can stand up as far as a first directorial type thing, like a Memento for Chris Nolan.
Yeah.
And I look at Matthew Vaughn now as if Chris Nolan, after Memento, were watching him do like Red Notice on Netflix.
Right. Imagine if Red Notice was like told backwards.
So after Layer Cake, it's like, give this guy the money. Keep him making movies. And then you realize what a huge mistake you've made.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a lot. I just kind of took your initial toss to me.
No,
and
I
just ran
love
with it.
that. And also talk about a fantastic hot take on how budgets affected. I think that's really, really excellent, Tom. Yeah, I would say, again, more than anything, compare these films side by side, it's clear as day. And if anything, I would encourage definitely watching Layer Cake, even even for the Matthew Vaughn appreciators, because I think he's really hit a great pace here, and just the right balance of cool without being corny. As for the setup here, Layer Cake stars a very young Daniel Craig, who is exceedingly good at dealing cocaine. He's like the best at dealing cocaine. The title, of course, referring to the layers of complications stacking on top of him as he's just about to leave the game. While certainly the slickest character in his crew, he is ultimately just one fish swimming in a very dangerous pond, and the other sharks, jealous of his success, push him into one last job, which, wildly spirals out of control for every remaining minute of the film. It's not twist for twist's sake. I feel like the twists in this, the introductions of new characters, the wool pulled over your eyes for certain portions of the story, it's all in service to selling this criminal environment as more chaotic than we know.
Yeah.
Where almost like Fincher's The Killer, our beginning is thinking he knows everything, and the film is all about subverting that. For the rest of the runtime.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I really do love the cast here, which is predictably wide, like all of Vaughn's films, but something about all of them being so young and startups works. I'm talking Tom Hardy, Sally Hawkins, Bern Gorman, and of course Daniel Craig. All show why they're able to have
Ben Winshaw too.
Yeah,
who we see as Q with Daniel Craig.
Oh,
then.
That's right. Yes, that's right. They all show why they have staying power on screen, and obviously the careers kind of fluctuate of how successful they are, but I really did enjoy that. And script-wise, the tangled mess of this underworld gives them substance even though they might not be on screen very long. Tom Hardy is a perfect example. Cool as ice. I think he says 4 lines.
I know, yeah.
And boy, is that a lesson that Argylle needs to learn from, because there is something that these characters aren't on screen for long. They do still have impact where we'll get to it. There's casting decisions that don't do anything in Argylle. So
I'll kind of jump on that.
Yeah.
And I think what you could also boil down to Matthew Vaughn back then to Matthew Vaughn now is respecting competent characters. Everyone is competent in this film, except for the guy that clearly is supposed to be the idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where
Absolutely.
in now the modern day films, his stuff, so many people are idiots. So much of the cast is just kind of dumb because it's such a dumb film.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's all for the joke too. It's all the joke rots away everything.
I mean, there's Cole Meany and Michael Gambon, who's phenomenal. To who's
it's O'Brien from Star Trek. It's from Star Trek Next Gen.
Are we?
That's
Cole Meany.
Yep.
George Harris, kind of his Daniel Craig's right hand man.
Yep.
Everybody is smart, and it's so good. It's
and that's
so good.
compelling enough to
right.
keep your attention. They don't need to be cracking jokes. Every minute on screen.
Yeah.
I would say my main critique here is exactly my first initial reception of the film is how the story is delivered, how the layer cake is layered. Scene after scene, Daniel will be whisked between different associates and crime lords, all delivering a boatload of exposition. Now, again, because of this underworld, that exposition is interesting, but it's really just how they're put back to back is what I think I have a problem with. Sometimes we get an action or a sexy scene in between, but too often in the edit, these dialogue dumps will be bookended with each other, and it's just after a while. And again, I'm not really knocking like British accents, but after a while, you kind of just get lost in how much dialogue is being pushed towards you.
It is a lot. It is a lot, and to the point where a lot of the movie is just guys talking in rooms.
Right, exactly.
From this room to that room, to the golf course room, to the back office.
Yeah.
It is a lot of that.
Yeah. Any individual one of those scenes I enjoyed. It's more so in the edit how they're back to back sometimes.
Right. The consistency is too constant. Too consistent. Yeah.
Exactly. And I even if it would have been, maybe on the other hand, I would have critiqued it for being formulaic if there was always an action scene breaking up these in between. But yeah, overall, it was really the same type of feeling that I had from watching it, that I'm paying attention, I'm maybe losing some small bits of it, but I wish I was able to get every crumb.
And I think it's for that reason that this film I'm always shocked to see how not long it is, because it feels longer.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of that happens because we rely so much on dialogue and dialogue scenes. scenes, and there's
Absolutely.
not much to break it up. And when we do, it's very short.
Absolutely.
So it's an hour and 45. It feels like it's 2:10.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I think it's no mystery that our director's trademark is matching music to slick action sequences. Hell, I think if you watched any single one of his film, you might pick that up. I was shocked to see it so early in this career as well. Pairing Duran Duran with a teapot being bashed over someone's head, I think was pretty awesome. And I feel like it was exactly the type of scenes everyone loves to death in the Kingsman movies, and
it's a very loose connection. I love that you picked up on that.
Yeah,
honestly, I wasn't anywhere near there. I'm willing to say he had the brains, and that was his thing, and he kept that going rather than just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But okay,
I think, and maybe I can dial back the praise in the sense that.
No. I love
every
it.
director's wet dream is a fun music action sequence.
Look, like I said, I couldn't find any connecting of the dots.
Yeah.
The fact that you were finding stuff, I'm all for.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's really it. More so just because. But you would certainly agree that Vaughn is known for these slick action sequences.
Yes.
With every film.
Oh, and part of the thing that I find lazy and don't like, everyone talks about the church film in the first Kingsman.
Yeah.
And maybe because I saw it later.
Yeah.
Like, I think I even saw it after. Like, I've seen John Wick's and stuff, so I had just perspective or more. Just not impressed with the guy. Most impressed at his simplicity in Layer Cake.
Sure, absolutely. I'm there with you. I think that's a great observation because you go back and you watch that, it's like, okay, I think that's another case where the meme of it using Freebird, the trope of expecting Freebird in a movie, what's going, that's where it kind of outlives the actual experience of itself. But I would say, unlike Scarface, there was really no puzzle to unpack with my old rating on this one. I think, if anything, I was impressed with how much this held up to what I expected it to be.
Yeah.
And I think because of the emphasis is so clearly on the twists and turns of where the story goes, I was really appreciative of a rewatch to pick up more of these crumbs, of the interconnectedness of this criminal world. I'm happy to say this held up very well, and once again, was just so nice to see a toned back version of what we know to be a very loud style in a director. I think, in addition, this being an important piece in the 2000s action landscape, it's still worth your time today, and definitely for kind of cinephiles and folks at home, if you like what we talk about and kind of connect the threads between where actors go and kind of studying historically as well. This one's a good watch. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give Layer Cake 2004 a 69.
A 69% for Layer Cake. Not bad. That's a good movie. 69% is a good movie.
Absolutely.
It's funny, the more I watch the film, almost the more I like it.
I could imagine, because you pick up more on how complicated the plot
and it didn't get old. I mean, it was really, and almost like you said, it was refreshing to watch.
Yeah.
I did see it before Argylle, but watching this, I was still saying, this is the guy that went on to do the Kingsman then? Where was this? There's just a little bit more of a grittiness to it.
Yep.
There's no flash. There's no bang in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I like that. Good story, good actors, and good writing. Love Daniel Craig, and like you said, so many reasons to go see it. You know, this is towards the later years of Michael Gambon. I think he's phenomenal in this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Early years of Daniel Craig. You know, he Road to Perdition in 2002, and then this in 2004.
Yep.
And like I said, if you want to see why Daniel Craig is the massive success he is, which started with Bond, it really is in this. The DNA is in here. I love this movie. I like it way more than a 69.
Okay.
This gets 2 shoes, and one of them are laced.
Whoa, that's very positive.
It's up there with some Bonds.
Really?
Because
I love it. That's great.
It feels like a smaller movie. Don't get me wrong, but a good movie. Like it almost gets that shoelace because I'm so impressed with it.
Sure, a sleeper hit almost. Like, hey, if you don't know about this, check it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about American Fiction,
yeah,
and that I finally saw it last week, and we were talking about how I felt that it just felt like a film festival movie.
Okay.
It felt small, and it kind of deserved to be small. It deserved just that festival release. We see it, and then I just wasn't.
You weren't floored by it.
I wasn't feeling the buzz.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A little shot in the foot by expectations.
For sure.
Certainly.
Oh, absolutely.
And even my own praise of the film.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Layer Cake feels like a small film, but it still feels like a deserving wide release. It still feels like a movie. It feels like a motion picture first. I'm just impressed with what they were able to do.
Yeah.
With locations and budget and cast and whatever. So 2 shoes, 1 lace. Like I said, it's
He's
up there
your
with
boy.
some Bonds.
I was waiting for you to say it's your boy.
He's my boy.
That is actually your boy.
He's my boy. Oh, my God. That's so true. Okay, folks. So before we go on to our 2 new release films, we just want to remind everybody that we are going off of the value for value model. So Vin and I, every week, we are putting value out to you all. So, the podcast comes out once a week. The newsletter comes out every Monday evening, Tuesday morning. We, of course, we have the main thing is, too, the website, which is we always call it the companion piece to the podcast, where we're basically making our own IMDb, our own Rotten Tomatoes of the daily ratings.
It really is a database, yeah.
That's all value. And if you're finding it valuable, we ask you, can you send some value back our way? And you do that through monetary support. So you go to thedailyratings.com and you head to the donations tab, and through your monetary support, you show us what value you're getting, and you also become a legit producer of the Daily Ratings. Just like in Hollywood, when you financially support something, you become a producer of that project or that product. And we've had some great producers of the Daily Ratings so far, and we hope to have many in the future. The whole value for value model, it's a little bit new. There's definitely podcasts doing it. But the reason why we do that this way is we have no paywalls on the site. We have no paid tier structures. There's no advertising, which is a huge thing. We're not going to just be shilling things and stopping for ad breaks that we don't care about, or pop-up ads on the site and really bog that down. It's a pretty clean experience, and it's just kind of another way to do things. Because $5 from you could be a lot different from $5 or $100 to somebody else. Everybody's got their own thing going on. The idea is, can you just send us some value? You know what I mean? Are you having a good time every week?
Sure.
You're more into movies. You're making your own movie list because of what we've got going on here, or because what we do every week. It's value in your pocket. Can you send us value back in our pocket? When you become a producer, don't forget to send your donation note in, whether it be questions, comments, critiques. It could be about movies or TV, your life, or whatever. It doesn't really matter.
You want to bash my opinions? You hated Tony Soprano?
Let us know about it. You send in a note along with your donation, and we're going to read it right here in this donation, in this producer segment. We're definitely seeing more and more people are listening to the podcast. I mean, worldwide and throughout the states and everything. It is growing, which is great to see. Now it's just hopefully that this value for value model can kind of catch on a little bit. The whole producer model, rather than advertising, tier structures, paywalls, you know.
And even going to what you said, it's a clean experience. If we're going to put time in the podcast aside for anything other than the movies, we want to put the time aside for the people that are listening. We want to hear from you.
Exactly.
We want to hear how this impact is happening.
It's a great through line. It's a great through line. So when you donate, you can send in one of those producer notes through a PayPal box. I think you're limited characters. But always don't be afraid to email us, whether it's your note or just email us at tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. So you can email us there, whether it be your donation note, whatever. We thank you all so much. Again, we're hoping this year, since more and more people are listening, we can get more and more people just kind of get the idea out there, get people to understand a little bit what the whole value for value is. We appreciate you all so much for listening. Okay, Vin, let's go on to our newly released films. We're going to start with
a doozy.
Yeah, we're going to This film came out in 2023. Again, it was a film festival release, and finally it's starting to trickle out for us in theaters in the States.
Yep.
And it's got some Oscar nominations as well.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So it's with Sandra Huller, who had a big year in 2023 because we were very big fans of her playing the lead role in Anatomy of a Fall.
Yep.
But this is called The Zone of Interest by Jonathan Glazer is directing. Set the film up for sure, Vin, and tell us about it a little bit, and tell us how'd you like it.
Well, the best thing I can say for this film, though not a part of the original production of this, but this very much is right in the wheelhouse of what we know A24 to be. I feel like it's a match made of heaven, basically, pairing these two together. And I'll tell you, Tom, I was kicking myself for not catching an earlier showing of this in October because, wow, would it have fit into the horror month? I feel like another thing that I can kind of what I want to add to the building praise of this film is that both in Glazer's background, but also in the film itself, I really would describe it closer to a horror than the Oscar baity drama it's being portrayed as. So, if anything, when people kind of roll their eyes over kind of an Oscar-nominated film like that, this is not one of those because of how unique and disturbing a lot of it is.
That really surprises me because I really haven't heard that word horror connected with this film that much. I know a decent amount about it. I've heard a lot of reviews and some clips I've seen.
Yeah.
But often it is like a drama, history, war are the main three genres that people attach to it.
Yeah.
Horror, I can see how you get there, but I'm interested that that's how impactful it was to you.
I think so. I mean, if you want to maybe dial it back to suspense in ways, but I think it's not really like a thriller. It's not really suspense. I feel like what the experience you walk out of this is horrific. And not that I was kind of uninterested in this film earlier in the year. I believe it originally landed it released in May in Germany, and then we had that small run in October. But I found this to be a dark horse in the recognition of 2023, especially being this kind of minimalist German film. But boy, was that a big mistake. This was an excellent
Okay, all right. So believe the hype already.
Absolutely. All I had to do is dig through director Jonathan Glazer's films, who was a name that really just slipped my mind. I realized he'd made one of my favorite horrors, a film I loved so much, we covered it actually randomly on the podcast, 2013's extraterrestrial horror Under the Skin. Hell, he's even directed a handful of some seriously iconic music videos, including The Moving Room in Jamiroquai's Virtual Insanity. I mean, that's music videos. That's a feather in the cap. That's a good music video.
We like our director music who came from directing music videos.
Absolutely,
it is a little bit of a through line for us on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a good indicator for style, basically.
But Under the Skin, you love.
Yes,
and have always loved that film.
Always loved that film. I love the minimalism in it, and honestly, it just totally slipped my mind. Glazer did that, and just who Glazer was, honestly. So, but that doesn't quite set the tone for what the film captures. This film does capture a lot. Like I said, this is a very intense, horrific experience, but it may not seem like that on the surface. The zone of interest is loosely inspired by the 2014 novel, mostly serves to portray the Holocaust within Nazi Germany in a disturbing new way. The position of commandant comes with certain privileges, but the story shows an unexpected one. The Zone is a family estate smack dab in the middle of a concentration camp, no less Auschwitz. This ludicrous idea attempting to show what a perfect German family should look like under the new regime. The real commander, Rudolf Haas, is played by Christian Friedel, but our focus is more on the family, the estate, and certainly the mindset. And the mindset in two directions. The mindset of our characters living this odd reality in the middle of Auschwitz, but also the mindset in what they're allowing by standing by. The film really has a laser focus on what we allow by inaction. That is no better represented by Sandra Holler striking back once again. She plays a gray character with an underline of menace. Her being the only other adult in this family, we have to quietly confront her part in participating, even though she may not be the Nazi her husband is. Also, really want to give a shout out to Sandra Holler. I think my choice is definitely in Anatomy of the Fall as far as performance goes.
Yeah.
But this woman juggled a French, English, and full German performance.
It's wild
with this. I mean, props.
She's crushing it.
Seriously, props.
She's totally crushing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we go back to 2022 when I was praising Cate Blanchett for juggling some languages.
Yeah.
Holler is like living these languages.
Yeah,
so.
it's very impressive what she was able to do last year.
Absolutely.
And like you said, you know, not only this is also split between her and the husband for sure in this film, correct?
Yeah.
Where Anatomy of a Fall was such a platform and runway for her.
Yeah.
You know,
she's the target, she's the focus, and yeah, absolutely. This film is very minimalist. Scenes really aren't emphasized in any way. I have to say, this will demand that the viewer has a laser attention to catch the context here. A perfect example of this is how the corners of the frame will be used to tell the quote-unquote real story. An example being smoke from a train billowing over their walls, or especially my favorite scene in this entire film, which I will simply call the river over discovery. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of moments where the film takes the full weight and the full horror of the Holocaust and it hits us like a train. But the exact circumstances of how insane this idea is and how it is allowed and enjoyed by our characters is what we untangle in the film. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the entire thing is a wild concept.
Yeah.
And interesting that we're just tackling it now in 2024, but the idea of let's just, a prospering German military guy.
Yeah.
Let's just take their family and right outside of Auschwitz, which
Yep.
was a thing.
Right.
Because these people went to work in Auschwitz then.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to take the perspective of the family.
Yeah.
And like you said, on the outer frames, you actually see what's going on.
Yeah.
And just
Exactly.
that swap of tone to a film that should be something, but you're dealing with just almost an everyday family.
Yeah.
In the strangest and craziest circumstances.
Yeah. And this film is, this was actually a packed theater. Everyone was curious about this.
Everyone's been dying to see it.
Right.
They're freaking screwing us with show times and everything.
Yeah. And like I said, it's very minimal. It's very slow. So there was some old guys snoring in the theater. I really, to get the most out of this, you got to be locked in.
Yeah.
And it rewards in a way because it's this, it's that question of, is this real? Was this allowed? Is this a thing? That's the hook for these slow moments of the film, and then it hits you with what the film is really trying to get across.
Yeah, my biggest thing was, one, I knew with how much praise it's getting, it's like, wow, these performances must be very good.
Yeah.
One, because you're just so heavy on that.
Mm-hmm.
But two, I've been hearing about how it was filmed as well, or the way camera placement is and such. And did you find yourself impressed with the director, Jonathan Glazer, or was it more of an easy route to take?
Not easy. I think the concept was so electric that it did some heavy lifting. Believe it or not, I was not aware of the cinematography style going into this.
Okay.
And for folks at home, if you're not, because this has been a lot about its press circuit of how this has been filmed. They basically set up cameras in this estate and just kind of let people let the cast run with it. So we get very fixed positions, and that's what I mean. That's what's so compelling about really locking into this film and
Right.
almost scanning the screen for what the real
very
story
cool.
is.
It's
Yeah.
very cool. But that's what I'm so it didn't feel amateurish.
No.
Like, oh, we set up these cameras and then they're doing that, the characters are doing them.
Maybe to your point, you could say this filming style is a gimmick, but a good gimmick, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Worth it and
Absolutely.
effective. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's a valid question, too. Kind of a tangent. No, I'll leave that. It's a little bit too much of a tangent.
Okay.
Again, what surprises me most after watching this film, I think everyone will say the same, is that it actually is getting this Oscar recognition. On top of these horror roots of Glazer, he's really not afraid to get experimental at all with this. I would definitely describe this as a bit art house and realistically not going to be everyone's bag. The A24 vibes are strong with this one.
Yeah, it just seems oozes of it, probably.
Yeah, it really is. But in a good way. We've talked about plenty. Across probably the entire podcast, we've talked about how A24 can kind of fluctuate. Sometimes it's a magic mix. Sometimes it's really boring, like eating an entire pie.
Yep.
But this opens up with music playing over a blank screen for a solid 2 minutes, maybe more. You could feel the theater getting restless, just like, what the hell is this? And consistently, that music is very unsettling and very disturbing. Composer Mika Levi
Okay.
works with Glazer again and kills it here. In ways, and I was telling you about this briefly when we saw each other over the weekend, in ways it reminds me a little bit of All Quiet on the Western Front, the new one, where you have these modern, sometimes even like electronic, distorted sounds to the music and to the soundtrack, and I think it's in purpose of more of a modern spin. I also think there's some connective tissue there, is that maybe that's a trend in German filmmaking right now, of having these historical pieces, but having a modern soundtrack to it and modern filmmaking techniques.
That's interesting.
Either way, very disturbing, very unsettling. Sometimes the noise, and I really mean kind of just noise, sometimes it's not music at all, plays over. It slowly unnerves you over this. This is not a long runtime either, but
hour 45 still, again, yeah.
Yeah, the pacing is, it really gets under your skin in a way that, dare I say, something like The Shining would. Like, high praise on the horror
it's high praise, and it's because people aren't connecting horror with this. Because we're not talking jump scares and things like that. We're talking about a horrific, constant feeling that is slowly kind of just fed to you in the film. So
maybe not even fed to you. I know what you're saying there, but I think the exact line that it's successful is because you're discovering these things yourself.
Okay,
you're making the connections, and that's why it's more in your head, you know?
Yeah.
This is a movie where we don't see any direct death of the Holocaust. So discovering that for ourselves, it feels, it feels psychological, you know?
Right. It feels horrific. It feels horror, yeah.
Right. Exactly. There are also very drastic color palette shifts all over this, including some unsettling and out of left field night vision shots, and overall the experience puts the blinders on the atrocities directly, but instead effectively unnerves the viewer with a constant barrage of unsettling clues. All of this makes for a surprisingly surreal experience that not only dips into horror, but I would strongly argue is one of the best horror films I've seen from the last year.
Wow.
Definitely not for everyone, both for the intensity of it, for the pacing of it, but I have to admit, with such a heavy focus, and I mean heavy focus on visual storytelling of the film, it's a bit challenge to juggle the German dialogue. I was so lasered in on the visual storytelling of this, it being a foreign film with subtitles was kind of hard. It was a little bit actually difficult. Yeah. I bring this up because there are some lines said by these characters that shifted everything into perspective, shifted everything that I can argue this horror stance for the film, and really shocked a packed theater out of nowhere, itching to find out what the hype was around this film. And I happily say, like you said, Tom, believe the hype. We're going to go ahead and give The Zone of Interest an 83.
Wow, an 83%, Vin. Yeah. Excellent. Very good movie.
We might be spending more time with Glazer, because he's got a lot. I've never seen any of it other than Under the Skin.
I love it.
So.
We should definitely give him more of a watch. Hey, Sandra Huller, we'll give her more love.
Absolutely.
Because she has quite the career.
I can only imagine what the next 2 years will be for her.
Oh, yeah, it's just a skyrocket.
Yeah.
83%. That's a big...
Yeah, big movie. One of the best of the year.
I mean, you look at what the films that we covered in 23.
Yeah.
And there was only 2 that did better than an 83%. So this is a heavy, heavy hitter, folks. Well, 83%. If you can see it in theaters, go see it in theaters. But really, it ought to be coming to, was it Apple? Somebody did grab it.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no. What am I saying? A24 has the new...
HBO Max
The new deal with Max. Yeah. So it will be on Max at some point, hopefully soon. Because you would think they would want to get this out before the Oscars, or... they would use the Oscars to hype the film, and I don't know. But maybe around Oscar time, we'll actually be able to see this on Max.
I think a home watch is honestly perfect for it, though, because if you're getting a little tired, if you need to rewatch something just to see what the hell they just said, honestly, a home watch is perfect.
Dealing with
this.
The subtitles, too, if you miss something or want to go back. And
exactly. Because sometimes, again, like these characters out of nowhere will say something. It's like, wait, what? Like, they just said that. So, it's something else. But.
Excellent. Again, talk about a total shift in mood. Total shift in movies
total
here.
Shift in rating, in experience, in enjoyment.
So this film is there's a true 2024 film, Vin.
Yeah.
This is Argylle. So this is directed by Matthew Vaughn, who just did Layer Cake that we covered. Okay.
We saw this together. Tom, how would you rate the movie theater experience? I have no notes on this, but it was definitely an experience.
The theater experience was very good. Reason being one way overly excited guy.
Yeah.
Having reactions to moments in the films. I mean,
there was copious clapping. There was hooting. There was...
Oh, at one point, in the most nauseating part of the film almost, he had to go, oh!
Yeah.
And it was like, wow. I mean, you and I both jumped out of our seats,
looked
looked at each other.
Eyes locked. Like, are you fucking kidding me with this shit? This is what the mainstream wants.
This film is. I'm taking the reins real
Oh,
quick.
yeah, take it.
This film is all over the place. At some points, it's so dumb. You're shocked that this is even like it's insulting that this film was made and that adults should even go.
Even if you want it to be dumb, yeah,
right?
It's that dumb.
Yet at the same time, it's a little bit incoherent too. The plot and the way this whole thing came about, and this is kind of how I'll set it up, Vin, before I toss it to you.
Yeah.
Argylle's. There are actual books called Argylle.
Oh, really?
Matthew Vaughn really wanted to do a movie, couldn't get the rights to the book. Then so basically went to the writer, and the writer wrote a book for this film. It came out like just weeks before the film came out.
Wow.
So Matthew Vaughn was able to make this movie. So basically, he's making a movie about a later book that's somewhat connected to the earlier ones and tells the future of books, too, because you're doing backstory. Plus,
wow.
It's ridiculous how it's tried to connect it.
Unreal.
It's crazy how he wants to kind of be in the world of the Kingsman world as well.
Oh, sure.
And just combining of universes he's trying to do.
Yep.
Like I said, it cost $200 million, and Apple took it up. I believe it was Apple's $200 million. They might even spent more on it. And then Matthew Vaughn convinced Universal to buy back some of the rights or something so they can actually do a theatrical release.
Oh, wow.
Which is a huge waste because it's doing terribly.
It's really doing bad.
As it should. So the whole idea, it's like Matthew Vaughn, this isn't a throwaway project. This was a sought after, basically curtailed and critiqued for him, created for him with this whole book nonsense.
Wow.
Shockingly bad. Vin, how did you like Argylle?
Yeah, shockingly bad. It's right. I got to say, and I'll comment it on a few times. I mean, if I had to give a graph, a visual representation of, I don't know, maybe even just my enjoyment, but a visual representation of how directors work, Vaughn's will always be a slope directly downward.
Slope down.
His beginnings are usually the strongest, it's something else. This movie is really something else. I had to really check myself on if this was the first Matthew Vaughn film we covered on the podcast. We covered the World War I Kingsman film, and boy, do I not remember that at all.
Yeah, I think it came out on Netflix. That's why, and it was during COVID or something.
Oh, okay.
And it's called The Kingsman. But
Yeah.
huge. I mean, had
I remember the movie. I just don't remember reviewing it.
Okay. A little bit of Houdini syndrome. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I gotta listen back to my own voice.
You didn't hate it, by the way.
No, I don't remember hating it.
Yeah.
If anything, I remember it probably being the strongest of the Kingsmen.
You
Oddly enough.
I think you like the first one the best. No.
Okay.
I think it was
ballpark.
1, 3, and then 2.
Yeah, two's bad. But Vaughn has become more of a producer powerhouse in the UK film industry more than a director as of late. We commented this on the very end of last week. So it was really no shock to me that the money moves this made were the tacked on post-credit scene promoting his own kind of wet fart of a cinematic universe.
Yeah.
The heavy, more than ever heavy licensed soundtrack put into this. And that,
Disgusting.
That damn Beatles song that is played.
Disgusting.
To ad nauseum. It really just, I don't know, I feel like this felt like Vaughn was in his producer role more than he was in his director role.
Which is even worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, his fingers were all over this.
Exactly. Right. No one was telling him no. So that means it's his ideas. This movie was bad, though. Like, really, really bad.
Shocking.
It looked to be loud and obnoxious, but hey, guess what? It was loud and obnoxious. You know how the 2010s was packed with those comedies that were just like filled to the brim with actors as some desperate attempt to appeal to everyone? This copies that formula in a spy action comedy shell. I'll maybe give a very, 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 very soft recommendation for a Valentine's Day crowd for this because of the feminine spin centered on Bryce Dallas Howard, but otherwise I would say steer clear.
Yeah, I would say if you want to break up with somebody on Valentine's Day,
you want to sink the relationship.
Yeah, take him to Argylle. All you got to do is come out of the movie saying, I really like that. Boom. Gone.
Right, gone.
Your date's gone. Don't worry about it.
There's actually been a lot of memes going around of saying taking your date to Poor Things as the first date. This is great. Initially, I would say for a sliver of time in this, it kind of worked for me as a spy-themed Stranger Than Fiction until it repeatedly shits the bed. In Argylle, we follow Ellie Conway, a writer of a mega-popular pulp spy series. Her daydreams filled with the stylish stories of her characters. She's really married to her work and may not live in reality, but reality comes knocking at her door when her books start predicting real events with real consequences. Fans of Henry Cavill will be very disappointed here as Sam Rockwell takes over the quote-unquote real spy story assigned to protect Ellie from a spiraling conspiracy that attempts to have a shocking amount of twists, probably 4 times over with little success in any of them. My hot take on Matthew Vaughn, like I said, is that his movies are just this steady downward slope. Often the best action sequences and even late runtime razzle-dazzle will be front-loaded in his films, and the rest is just this kind of steady decline. I point directly to the second Kingsman film, with the Golden Circle or whatever it's called, as a perfect example of this. That open taxi action sequences is one of the best action scenes of the decade. I will fall on the sword for it. And then the film only becomes a mess and further a mess. And then Elton John's put in it. And then it's just like, stop. It's too much. I would say the fake spy story here slightly works at the start. It's camp existing somewhere between a real James Bond movie and Austin Powers buffoonery, but wow, by the end I was saying, please kill me, release me from this film.
It's really true. The last 20 minutes are borderline painful, tortured to get through.
It really is torturous. That story just slides further and further and flounders for, I would say, almost even the last hour.
Flounder's a good word.
Yeah. And it's just like, I've had enough. I've had enough. Strike me down. Soon this intentional corniness comes to the real world plot too, and sadly it just does not work an ounce. The fact that many scenes towards the end are goofier than Cavill's hair in the beginning is not a good payoff. It really isn't. I feel like the worst thing that this film could have done is start goofy and then end goofier. Where if it was really like a Stranger Than Fiction or something like that, start with your fun, goofy premise and move into more serious and actually make a decent action film out of it, even with Bryce Dallas Howard being the sole lead there. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it was trying to do that.
No, I think it was trying to be even goofier. I mean, I will say one evidence that the ice skating scene, we'll just call it that. Oh, God, we will just call the ice skating scene. I feel like that is goofier than anything in the fake world of her books.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
I honestly, I can't say for sure. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's trying to keep the same tone the entire time.
Yeah.
It's trying to be cool. Don't forget, the ice skating thing, I don't think it's supposed to be goofy. I think Matthew Vaughn would be upset.
Oh, boy.
About us calling things. I mean,
that's a very good question. That's a very good question. what was Vaughn's intentions?
I mean, folks, that's what's shocking here. You know what I mean? Is the movie's taking itself seriously, but then it doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Because even like what Vin said, how it starts and when you're almost with B plot, with this imaginary plot, it's so over the top that it's supposed to be a goof. It's supposed to be a James Bond kind of joke.
And slightly enjoyable for that reason.
And that's why when you're in the real stuff, or what's supposed to be in the real stuff, that's why I just thought it's him taking it more seriously, kind of.
That's true. That's true.
It's shocking.
It really is.
It's shocking.
It's shockingly bad. It's tough because this film actually does have a lot of spoilers. Believe it or not, I really have to tiptoe here in talking about how much of a problem I have with certain shifts in the plot.
Oh, I would love to. I know.
And certain characters. But I mean, Maybe I'm just trying to be semi-balanced here. Again, if you really like wild twists, this maybe could slightly.
Again, I'm going to disagree because I don't think anything wild is about it.
I
think it's so dumb and then incoherent that you can't even call them twists.
Okay. Well, to be fair, did you predict any of them? I didn't predict any of them. Well, I predicted the one.
You're right. I didn't predict.
The stupidity sunk
right.
below your radar.
I'm not the smartest man, but I can definitely say, no, I was not dumb enough to call out what the twists were going to be.
It effectively
in this film.
was stealth. It was the stealth bomber past your radar. I would say, when it comes to, describing these scenes, I really trust me. The mix of semi-serious action and comedy will turn your stomach. I would say the only saving grace here is Bryan Cranston, who is so cartoonishly evil. He is introduced with church organs playing, which honestly, it got a laugh out of me every time they were just like laying on these church organs. I was like, what? Cranston is, this is a very hammy, everyone's super hammy in this, but Cranston does kind of achieve some sort of,
something
delicious garbage.
Yes, great, great, great verbiage, or whatever, great adjective.
Delicious garbage. Camp.
Cranston to me as well is probably the best. The problem is I love Sam Rockwell. The reason why I'm so disappointed that this film exists is because it tarnishes his name.
I think that's fair. Because I definitely was kind of side-eyeing Sam Rockwell after this a little bit.
He takes all different kinds of roles.
Sure.
You know, it's just I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
I'm not upset at him. I'm upset for him, with him.
Yeah.
That his name is attached to this property.
Yeah.
It really is just such a shame. I'd never been a fan of Bryce Dallas Howard. I don't think she's strong. I really can, in my mind, swap her sometimes with Jessica Chastain.
Oh, for sure.
They're both just redheads. They're cute, whatever.
Right.
But to me, they also have the same flaws of not being strong actors and not commanding the screen or being a presence on screen. They're too soft almost. And like with alongside Sam Rockwell, if you just had like a Vanessa Kirby or something, maybe it would even hit a little bit more, maybe because it tries to be serious and it's not at all. It tries to be funny and it's not at all.
Yeah.
So
and the moments that it's trying to crank tension, that comedy rots away the tension of the spy or what we're supposed to take seriously as stakes in this film.
So the material wasn't there for sure for the actors, and I still think Bryce Dallas Howard did nothing to elevate it at all. Yeah. And if any will, just sinks it a little bit worse. Really.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. Jessica Chastain, I would have to maybe look at a filmography, but what's Howard got? The terrible
She's got the
Jurassic World?
Right, the Jurassic World and stuff. And what's crazy is the first of all, as far as marketing goes, Henry Cavill and Dua Lipa are all over the posters. Henry Cavill is almost like top billing at times. He's always just like the biggest in the posters.
Right.
Folks, do not go to see these people.
Yeah.
However, I would love to just see them, or Dua Lipa seemed at least cool.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? I even said it to you, of all things. And folks, if you listen to my shitting on the Fast and Furious movies, even John Cena won me over in this. That's a big thing for me to say, because I really don't like John Cena.
Who's also barely in it, folks, by the way.
Yeah,
Talk about another one person who has like 4 lines.
Right.
But if those were fleshed out more utilized, like Dua Lipa, or I don't know, it just have more of like that Palm Clementif-y kind of person, like in the Mission Impossible.
Sure.
Boy, it's just no serious, no hits.
Yes.
Literally, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And a CGI nightmare.
Yeah.
A graveyard of CGI. I don't know. It was just god awful, terrible.
I think it was, for me, the bad part with the CGI is that I guess I don't mind when it's used in like the big like action sequences. What pisses me off is how it's in like the establishing shots. There's a shot of her in her apartment, and the water is just like, it looks like a PS2 game. It looks what you always say.
You think the water was CGI?
Oh yeah, I think like the establishing shots are where the worst CGI is.
Interesting,
because it's clearly not like on site.
I wonder if it was shot in 60 millimeter.
I have no idea.
Or 60 frames per second, whatever that's called.
60 frames.
60
would be.
Because that has a polishing thing that happens.
Yeah.
My problem with this, like, I have an entirely problem with the action scenes being the CGI that they are. It's another reason why I don't like the Kingsman. It's another reason why that Golden Circle Kingsman thing.
You're not digging the taxi scene?
No.
Oh.
I
gotta watch it.
I have no. I'd rather sit down and watch you play video games because at least it knows it's a video game.
Okay, fair.
I can't stand Vaughn's use of CGI or what happens. His polished kind of look of this fake gold or fake metallic kind of sheen to things. Can't stand it. The CGI in the action lessened the action, lessened the seriousness, and added nothing to the comedy because it was so god awful.
Right. I think that's where the balancing act tips over and kind of falls, is because the comedy it's lost. Again, I think when it works, it's somewhere like directly in between an Austin Powers and a real James Bond. But I feel like it wants, not to use a cliche of cake and eat it too, but it really does want its stylish action sequences, but to be this comedy as well. And it's just, both sides fail. It shoots itself in the foot.
Yeah, definitely.
I really didn't have much more to talk about on CGI, so I'm glad you brought it up because I really just, I think I could go on and on about the many problems I have in this film, and CGI is one of those where it's just like, it was bad. I hate it. I don't want to do a deep dive on how bad that CGI was.
Okay. It was a bug. I mean, it actively made the movie even more terrible for me.
Yeah. I agree. Another one of those aspects that I don't have a lot of expanded thoughts on is that cast. The fact that some actors were paid to barely be on screen. Samuel Jackson's casting in this is probably the best joke of the whole film. I mean, he's just watching basketball.
No,
they paid this man.
I can't. I would love to see how much they paid him. How much of the $200 million went into his pocket?
Oh, for sure.
For probably 30 minutes on set or something.
Yeah. And if anything, that's maybe where the $200 million makes sense, is because this is such a bloated cast. I
think it's CGI costs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
That makes sense. But that bloated cast is that, they have this cast for the fake spy story, and they basically abandoned it. And those, I mean, I don't know. I thought it would have been more creative. Again, in this kind of stranger than fiction, her writing is coming alive. I don't know, incorporate them more. You got them.
Yeah.
Like just instead of introducing all these additional characters that, like, I don't care about. I care about what the initial hook was.
Right. This could have been more everything. It just the actors could have been doing more. The story could have actually just had more instead of just dumb. It could. The only thing it couldn't have more of is it couldn't have been more worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta say, the last thing we gotta talk about is just most of all the music, which just feels suspiciously tied in post-production. This features heavily the new Beatles song produced by McCartney and Ringo that was a tie-in to Apple. Probably was acquired on the cheap. Let me tell you, it just does not feel like it fits into any scene. Like, especially for a director that is so particular about the fun needle drops that he wants to put into his action scenes.
Yeah.
This Beatles song didn't match with the funk disco that is peppered into the Argylle story, or even the very bland spy kind of score that is put over this.
Yeah. To an extent, this Beatles Now and Then song is almost the overarching theme, the overarching score, really, for the film.
It's played good 4 times. Good 4 times.
And the shocking thing is that, I mean, the one thing you could say is when the action starts, I mean, we're so bloated with action scenes in movies today. I actually kind of like the music that's playing during the action.
Okay.
It's actually something I could maybe say that it's something different, something a little bit unique. Yeah, this Now and Then is just, it feels so commercial, this film. And the fact that it came...
tie-in.
Yeah, no, the movie was probably pretty much wrapped, and even the CGI done, pretty much in the can, ready to go. This song comes out, and I would love to know what song was supposed to be it.
Yeah.
There's 2 characters on screen, and they have a moment together saying, like, this is our song, correct?
Yep.
And then this song plays, and it's just like, well, interesting. So this is taking place, 2 weeks ago then?
Oh, right, 2 weeks ago, but also, like, how the wording of, like, how they're reminiscing over this song is so vague that it really could have been anything. It felt like a template
Right.
Like they were just like, oh, we're gonna figure out what song it plays.
I almost want to read the book that came out a couple weeks before this movie because she probably just could have put that in there too.
Right.
I mean,
Apple lawyers were ready to pounce if she didn't. You know?
Yeah, not a strong song to begin with, and just to pepper it in there, it felt so grimy, useless.
Yep.
And
tacked on.
Yeah.
Inserted. Yeah. Rough. Folks, all of this is pointing in one direction. I guess my last comment on this is that last year, I think I don't even know. My gut says that it's worse than Thor: Love and Thunder. And the reason why I compare it to Thor: Love and Thunder is just of how nauseating pop culture, nauseating comedy, just like the Please Kill Me Now feeling as it's going on.
Yeah, it's strong. It was very strong. You got to take yourself back to Love and Thunder.
Yeah. But I really do think this is much, much worse. And honestly, my recommendation here is do not watch it. Not worth your time. We're going to go ahead and give Argylle a very strong 28.
At 28, wow.
Yeah.
It's almost too high.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought 28 was going to get... Because, I mean, it's a...
Change your name to Mother Teresa. I mean, you're insane over there. giving this a 28%. This movie sucked ass.
I can't wait. We're definitely getting a new Tommy Two Shoes here.
We didn't even talk. Well, the rule if we see a movie together in theaters,
You're
I have
right.
to give
You got it.
And the writer of this,
you go. Oh, you know the rules. Like we didn't make the rules.
We've established with Puss in Boots when we see a movie, me and you together in the theater, I have to give it a 2 shoes.
Right. I love it.
Okay. But you know the
rules as one of the writer of the rules.
I'm really looking at the writer sideways on this one, too. Let's just say I can't say I'm looking forward to going back to watch Ice Age Continental Drift. But I'll tell you what, the writer's name really goes along with how I feel about the movie.
Okay.
His name is Jason Fucks. And, I mean... This movie is just a turd. I mean, I wish... I don't even know. I'm lost for words. I'll just skip right to it. This gets 0 shoes.
0 shoes.
I wish I gave it gets a spittle. This gets... I mean...
Broken glass on the ground.
It's
you need shoes.
Tries to be a comedy. It isn't. Tries to be action. It's not. Tries to be a cool spy film. It's not. This movie is a failure. Matthew Vaughn, to me, is now just truly horrible. I will never be excited to see anything else from him. I hope Hollywood stays away from him. Very pleased that Layer Cake exists, though.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Glad to hear it's one of your favorites.
I mean, it's like if Nolan went from making Memento to now doing Red Notice on Netflix. Matthew Vaughn had Layer Cake, and now he's making Red Notice on Netflix, essentially.
Wow.
No better than that creep Ryan Johnson and just the rest of them.
He's got some serious heat he's throwing this week. Oh, man, I love it.
So 28%, though. Any finishing notes here? I mean, what crazy. Zone of Interest, 83. Argylle, 28.
Yep.
Which is so generous. So
right.
generous.
Finian's Rainbow, 25. Scarface, 81. That's what I said in the beginning. You're going to like this week. This is all over the map.
Any other notes, Vin, for this week? Any other touching things or things for the future? Roll credits here.
No, I think we're roll credits. We're running long. Just stay away from Argylle. That's the sage wisdom this week.
Vin, thank you so much for watching these. This was a blast watching along as well. Folks at home, we'll run it down one more time. We have Finian's Rainbow with a 25%, Scarface with an 81%, Layer Cake with a 69%, The Zone of Interest with an 83%, and finally Argylle with a 0 shoes and 28%. Folks, thank you so much for listening, and as always, we will see you next week with a brand new episode on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us. We'd appreciate it. And just a reminder that Daily Ratings is completely producer-supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So are you finding value in any of the things we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated for us. So thanks so much, everybody. We will see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.